Now we're going to talk about more factoring of trinomials, and we did this in a previous lesson, so you might have to reference that just a little bit. We talked about this generic formula we had. I'm going to change real quick. I'm going to change pins here because we talked about this generic formula of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are all letter values. Well, in the previous section, we talked about a was only one. In this case, a can be anything it wants to be. Okay, so we'll keep it as a signed number this time, positives and negative, but it can all be all real numbers in that value. So when we take a look at this guy, let's just start off by a problem because I kind of like jumping in anyway. So we get 15, right? M squared plus m minus 2. And what you're going to see is this a term is now 15. B is 1 and C is 2. That still doesn't change the way we did things because now it's instead of 1 times negative 2, it's 15 times negative 2. Gives us negative, in this case, 30. We're still looking to see if it factors. All right, so 2 factors of 30 that add to get, in this case, 1 are 5 and 6. Now, yes, 5 and 6 gives me 30. It doesn't give me 1 until I put the negative sign in there. It has to be a negative 5. So negative 5 times 6 gets me negative 30. And negative 5 plus 6, the difference of 1, sign of the larger, is 1. So this guy actually works. Now, because this guy works, my A value was 15, not 1. So I can't just jump to that binomial products that we were looking at before. I have to do what's called factor by grouping. And the way I get to factor by grouping is to expand my middle term. All right, so if I come back up to this, I look at this. This is my middle term. Well, I'm going to expand it. Well, how do I expand my middle term so I can do this factor by grouping process? Well, right here, these are the things that I found. And those are actually, because this is 1m, this is now negative 5m and a positive 6m. So I expand my middle term by saying this 15 is still the same. My middle term now becomes these two factors that I just found, which is minus 5m plus 6m. And then my last term is still 2. Now, does this look familiar? 4 terms, nothing comes out of all of them, so I have to do the factor by grouping. So I'm set up right exactly the way I want to be. So I'm going to group these two guys. I'll group those two guys. I can pull out a 5 and an m. It leaves me with 3m minus n1, because if I divide by 5m, I still get that 1 value. Here, I'm looking to do the same thing. I'm looking to end up with the same result, and I've got to do this. I've got to add, divide by a negative 2, or excuse me, divide by a positive 2, and that will give me that 3m. Well, when I divide by positive 2 here and here, I still get that negative 1. And as you see, my groups, so here's the grouping part, factor those guys out. And that leaves me, when I factor this guy out of here, it leaves me with that 5m. When I factor the 3m minus 1 out of here, it leaves me with plus 2. And as you can see, there's my binomial product. Let's do one that looks a little bit different and is actually quite a little bit tougher. And you'll see what I mean when we get there. All right, so let me get my pen back up here because I'm going to need a little bit of room on this guy. There. So this guy, I've got 36p to the 4th cube. You see how I'm already getting bigger. Plus 129. P cubed Q minus 60 P squared Q. Well, our very first lesson, we talked about greatest common factor. And if you look at these guys, 36 times 60 is huge. That's a huge number. Why would I want to do that? That's a pretty good indication that I'm going to look to see if I can't factor something out. This Q, as you see, kind of pops right up there. It factors out. Well, if it factors out, the P factors out as well. How many P's do I get out of everything? Well, I can get 2. Is the largest amount I can get out of all of them because of this guy. And I can get that Q. Well, if that's the case, what number comes out of all of them? Well, it's kind of hard to tell, but if I add those guys, that's 9. That means that I'm divisible by 3. Okay, this guy gets me 12, which is also divisible by 3. And if I add that guy, it's 6, which is divisible by 3. So I can get a 3 out of all of those. Now let's see what that does to that trinomial. So that comes out to 12. I'm left with p squared. This guy comes out to 43. I'm left with that p. And that guy comes out to 20. So now I'm dealing with much more manageable numbers here. All right, but 12 times 20 is still a pretty good sized number. That's negative 240. Two factors that add to get 43. Well, sometimes those things that pop out at you like this Q did, we use here too. I see that's 0. Well, 24 and 10 does work, but 24 plus 10 gets me 34, minus 10 gets me 14. I don't get that 43. So all I'm doing is taking those factors, I'm plugging them here, and I'm doing that kind of in my head. All right? But if I go times 10, or I go times 20, or I go 30 or 40, nothing ever gets me out of that 3. So base 10 is not the answer. Yes, I can use a 2 because it is even. So 2 and 120. Well, that adds up to 122, subtracts to 118, doesn't get me that. And I can go on and on and on. And this is where it's actually going to take a lot of time. It's not the 2 and it's not the 10. It's actually the 5. It's the 5. 5 goes in there 48 times. One of them has to be negative. If this guy's negative, then that gives me a positive 43. So this actually does work. Remember here, it may take some time to actually get there. So now I have to expand my middle term using those two factors that I've already found. So I get a 12p squared minus 5p plus 48p minus 20. Go ahead. We're going to group those guys. And out of here, I can get a p. Gives me 12p minus 5. Here again, I'm looking to get 12p out of that, so I'm going to have to divide a 4. That'll be a positive 4. And that will get me that 12p. If I divide 4 out of negative 20, I get negative 5. So this guy is 12p when I do the factor by grouping, minus 5. And I also get that p plus 4 remains. Now remember, this isn't my answer. This is part of it. These are two factors of my answer, but the greatest common factor is actually part of my answer as well. So this guy has to come down here, p squared q. And now that is my answer. When I multiply all that guy back, I get this guy. So good luck in your assignment, and please reference this if you need any help.